There is a fifth dimension.
A dimension of sound.
Damn it, Frank! We tell him to be quiet. I spilled my hot cup of Uranus again.
A dimension of sight.
Hey, Arch. I'm gonna sock you in the puss.
A dimension of mind.
Nan Adams, is that you?
Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Fifth Dimension of Twilight Zone podcast. I am, of course, your host, Nick. We're here, of course, to talk another Rod Sterling favorite podcast of all time, The Fifth Dimension, the greatest podcast, at least number one for three people on this podcast. Is that what you said last week? Like three people were the highest.
Yeah, we're
ranked for three
definitely
people?
the number one Twilight Zone podcast with three people named Triv, Nick, and Jacob.
Yeah.
There you go. But as always, we're on the audio feeds like Anchor and SoundCloud and BoobTube and Fundejo and whatever else I can think of when I'm not tired. It's been a long week, people.
And Vengeance.
And Vengeance and iTunes and Google Play and all that good stuff.
Vengeance.
Right. Vengeance.
Vengeance.
Martha, why'd you say that name? Anyways, you think he's gonna say that in the Flash? He's like, hey, can you go back and reset the Martha sequence?
And
Just
in the
like-
trailer, he does say, "I could save your mom too." Talking to Ben Affleck.
That's what.
so-
That's what she said.
No, you know what he said? He's like, I'm gonna take your mom out for a steak dinner, reverse Flash, and not call her back. She'll never remember.
I'm gonna reverse flash that hoe.
But
go,
anyways, right. But anyways, we're here. We're gonna be talking about a very serious episode. So if it gets dark and disturbing, and you need a tissue or something like that, I did when I saw this episode. This episode hit me hard, by the way. I
It hit him like a wrecking ball.
yes, I was naked on a wrecking ball, and I was just like, oh, hit me like.
Is that because
Um,
the rope or the chain was chafing your balls, or
I mean, that's very possible. I mean, I was
Did it
just
pinch?
like, I scratched. Yeah. I needed lube after that.
Stuck in
because it
them
was
kinks.
sticking me so hard.
ouch?
All
This
right.
is the Franks of the Beans.
It's both. I
How
do
do
the
you get the
Franks over
Franks
the
above
beans.
Right. But of course, the two that are with me here, as always, are Triv and Jacob. How the hell are you guys? We're talking about Franks and Beans, and we're trying to make it as light and fluffy before we get to the serious nature of an episode that I have feelings for. Not in the best way possible,
It
but
gave him
like,
the feels.
hit me in the cockles, as Jack Black says. So
The cockles of my
Uh,
cockles are feeling it.
right. But anyways, how the hell are you guys? How's life? How's the Twilight Zone for your hearts?
Well, I'm not in the sixth circle of hell I was in last week, so that's always a plus.
Yep. Oh, I'm good. Watch
So
the,
Triv's no longer in hell and Jacob's good. I think we're on the track.
watch the depressing episode
Yay.
today.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
depressing,
it's coming off an episode like It's a Good Life and going into this episode. It hopefully actually the next week is it's not as depressing or hard to watch, but it is certainly an episode that it's crazy. I feel like Rod Sterling is either in a moment of his life where he's just wanting to get everything off his chest at this point before we get to the trash can episode, or I'm thinking like I'm trying to look like when
All
is the
downhill
next
from
like right when is actually the next like good-hearted episode, and maybe Kick the Can, which
Let
is
me look
episode
here.
21.
Hang
I'm
on.
looking at it right now. Once Upon a Time I think is a pretty good one, or with Buster Keaton, which I'm learning. I'm actually watching a lot of
Oh,
his,
Once Upon a Time is they go back in time and
Yeah.
or no, it goes forward anyway. Yeah,
no,
that's
it starts out
probably-
as a silent movie and then it turns into he transports in time and stuff like that.
yeah. That's
Um,
probably the next quote cute
I
one.
can't wait to talk about that.
Oh, it's I love Buster Keaton. He's hilarious.
Yeah, like I was telling you, Trev, and I don't know, Jacob. I don't remember if I told you, but I started watching some of his ones he directed, like the Sherlock Jr. and the Navigator and stuff like that. You ever watching that stuff, Jacob?
Saw Flight of the Navigator.
Oh yeah, I saw that too. that's a classic from childhood. But
I know I've seen
No,
his movies, and I'm definitely familiar with a lot of his more famous clips and
Yeah.
stuff. But
yeah.
like, if you asked me to describe like story of one of his movies, I probably couldn't. Honestly, I'm very familiar with his work, but I'm not like an aficionado or anything.
Another good one to watch, Nick, that he's not really in, but he's still like an important part. It's a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. It was done in the 70s, I think.
Oh, okay.
Is it
Oh,
silent?
that had
Not silent. Not in the 70s.
No,
right?
no. This was it was starred Zero Mostel and what was his name? The guy that played Igor in Young Frankenstein. Marty Feldman.
Yep.
And a bunch of other people. But it's kind of Brooksian, like it's a little like Mel Brooks type of a deal. Like
Best
weird
comedy.
shit happened. Yeah, very it's not like parody per se, but it's definitely
We need more comedy like that in our lives, but not
Oh, I
like
agree.
History of the World Part 2.
oh yeah.
Watched Repossessed the other day, by the way.
Oh, I love Repossessed.
Love it.
Such a weird movie.
Rewatched, I should say. I saw it in
Yeah.
theaters.
What did I watch
Repossessed.
the other day?
Devil with the blue dress, devil with the blue dress on.
I was watching something the other day too. That's an '80s film. I can't remember.
There are
the
many
name of
80s
it.
films.
Repossessed?
Thank
Was
you.
that in the 80s or was that in the 90s?
That
No,
was
I didn't see Repossessed in
90s.
theaters. I lied.
How
rented
dare
that.
you?
I rented that. I was thinking of
What was I watching?
Dracula, Dead and Living It. But I did see
Oh, okay.
Repossessed the other day.
Nice.
Oh, I watched Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, that's a great one.
I
And
remember
then I
you
watched
saying
Revenge
that.
of the Nerds too, and then want to blow my brains out.
Oh, dude, did you know that Dan, like our Dan logo guy,
Confidant?
Dan, he's a massive Revenge of the Nerds fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because he was a massive dick. But
I cannot confirm or deny that.
Shit. That movie's so like you couldn't make that movie today. Or they tried to make it, but it didn't work out too well.
Yeah, well, it's all any of those though. They're kind of time and place.
Yeah.
Like it's not even a PC thing. It's
Nerds!
just a matter of
Like,
like.
a piece of my hair pie.
Part 2 is the one that has the guy who's like, nerds, right?
No, that
No,
was
that's
number
part
one.
one. I mean, he's
Is
in
that
part
one?
two as well.
He's in yeah,
Fucking
okay, he's
ogre.
in both.
Yeah, ogre.
But he goes like
Ogre,
the
yeah.
nerds is part one.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then and then at the beginning
long
of part
time.
two, he goes, he's just like a shot, like close up shot. He's like, nerds. Anyways, as you can
Can we
tell,
get a clip of that, please?
I'll be going, nerds. Maybe I'll send it to you guys. Anyways,
show's over.
um,
We're done. Nothing else we can do this better than that.
Nope, exactly.
so we made this episode number one. Woohoo.
Woo.
peaked.
Anyways, okay, so let's get into the series. We're here. We're gonna talk Rod Sterling's Twilight Zone. I'll just say right now, you can definitely tell Rod Sterling was in the war. You could definitely tell he really needed to get this off his chest. This is one of the darkest things I've ever seen. I'm gonna say right now, I can't believe this came out in 1961. There's some shit in here that is just, it's like I don't know what people. I honestly don't know what people were thinking when they watched this episode because
Imagery.
there's a scene in this episode that has people hung from a rope.
Mhm.
And
was jarring.
But okay, so I'm just gonna say this, and I know that the context is 100% different as far as like the subject matter of the thing, but look at how many westerns, like there was a lot of westerns that showed people hanging.
from in 1961,
Yeah, I would think
Yeah,
so.
but it was usually like
but I
nowhere
mean,
near.
okay,
as-
maybe
this was kind of gruesome as for TV.
It was,
Yeah,
and
I
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, as far as like the aspect of hanging, I'm
Oh, yeah.
pretty sure there would have been hanging shots done in that time and place. Maybe
well,
not
I mean,
prime time
lingered
TV,
on it.
but-
the Twilight Zone has done like hanging shots, but they've been like shadows.
Or
Sure.
just
But
feet.
yeah, but I've never seen like full. I guess I was just taken aback. I mean, this is like later in the episode,
Well, they weren't.
but
Just,
I'm just
they weren't just hanging. They were like
yeah, they were rope. You
bit
can see the rope on the neck
dangling.
and shit.
Yeah.
decrepit. You know, they were not just like criminals that had been hung. They were, and that's another thing. I guess usually when you see somebody hanging in like
yeah.
movies, especially back then, it was usually like, you know, the bad guy. These are like just innocent people hung up, and it looked like they've been beaten and like malnourished, and it looked. I will say that I was taken back by that. That was awful.
Yeah. They did a great
Yeah.
job with that aspect of it. There's no
Mhm.
doubt.
Yeah, and like I said, this is going to go down as one of like I guess I have a different feel to the Twilight Zone than a lot of people because these are episodes that I hold in high regard just on the simple fact of like how deep and how far they're willing to go for a 1960s episode. You know, I like my invaders and stuff like that, but just these episodes, like I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's weird. Like I said, we may not put this like number one. I always joke about that, but I would put this really high, even though I think Pace Magazine had it number 40. But the actual episode
Damn.
is season 3. Yes, right. Season 3, episode 9. It's called Death's Head Revisited. I don't know. The Death's Head Revisited is a kind of
Play
an
on words.
off. Yeah, play on words of Brideheads Revisited. But is Death's Head like outside Dachau?
Death's Head
Uh,
is I don't know if it's the official name, but it is what people called it. It's the symbol, the Nazi symbol with like the skull. Was it crossbones?
Oh, that was Death's Head.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
the
was
skull, the
the-
head-on skull, and it like had is kind of metal looking, and I think it had crossbones. It wasn't your
Hang on.
traditional
okay.
skull and crossbones. It was very not. When you see it, you're like, yep, that's Nazi.
Just
But that's
Yeah,
what
'cause-
it was. That's what it was commonly called, at least.
right, because the concentration camps were they're called Dachau. Is it Dachau? I think is how you pronounce it.
Oh, okay.
Um,
It's hang on. Let me pull it up here quick.
I'm not sure of the pronunciation, but it looks like
Yeah, they say it many
Dachau-
times, like
Dachau.
Dachau. Yeah, Dachau. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing it. I mean, it's just basically the type of camp that you saw in the 1940s.
DACHE.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of some of the variations.
There's
Um,
another one they have. It's like really.
Is it this one? I think no, that's Waterloo.
It's like very. I'm trying to scroll down on this thing for some reason.
Here it is. Well, this is in the this was so this was 34 to 45. I think it's this one.
Maybe I thought the.
I mean, it was their tanks, the Panzer
Yeah.
tanks.
Oh,
I
by the
think-
way,
that's
when
that one right there, I've seen it on their thing. I guess it is that one. Yeah, I just thought it was a little bit less cartoony. Not cartoony, but you know what I mean.
yeah, variations on a theme.
That's
yeah.
but like I said, I don't know if that's the actual name, but that is what they were commonly referred to.
It's more of
Yeah.
if you think like if you took a Skull and Crossbones and did like a profile on it, that's kind of
Mhm.
more what it follows.
But yeah, not a full
Gotcha.
profile, just a
Yeah.
But as I was saying, it's directed by Don Medford, written by Rod Serling. It's production code 4804. Original air date November. This is right before Thanksgiving. November 10th, 1961. Stars
I
Oscar
mean,
Borregi
it does
Jr.
warm the cockles of your cockles. So
Right. Yeah. In the
Definitely.
worst way possible. Joseph Schildkraut, Karen Verne, Robert Moon, Ben Wright. Okay, so penis, vagina.
Penis.
Yeah. Things that will make us laugh before we get to seriousness. This episode is super
my
dark. I
YouTube
don't-
career makes us laugh.
yeah, our YouTube career. It's everyone's YouTube career. You get a YouTube failure. I get a YouTube failure. Everyone gets a YouTube failure.
Ah, hell, that's okay.
Um,
Oh, sorry,
Anyway, so
I dropped a contact.
are you good or
Yeah, I'm good. I just
okay? Don't drop any more eye contacts. Poke you in the face.
Damn
The title is a play on the Evelyn Waugh novel Bride's Head Revisited. I don't know if that has anything to do with a guy going to a Nazi concentration camp as a
Don't
tour.
think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it was just hey, that sounds familiar. Let's do that. But this episode is super serial. It's an episode that was very hard to watch. I don't usually have trouble watching stuff. I've watched many. I don't know about you guys. Maybe you haven't, but I've watched some pretty graphic stuff, especially through certain websites, and I've seen people, all kinds of crazy shit. But when it comes to World War II, and it comes to the Nazism and the concentration camps and stuff like that, this shit. That's why Schindler's List is like my favorite movie of all time, just on the simple fact that the level of what happened. And I don't want to get into like the depths of detail, but this is what this episode is. The shit that happened in World War II with the Nazis and the Jewish people and the Jewish population, and what this episode is basically, Rod Serling, as you see in his opening and closing narration, really is, he was truly affected by this. And the fact that the censors of CBS and all that let him do some of the stuff he did in this episode is pretty crazy. Not crazy, but pretty impressive. I don't know what you guys think. I'm going to go on a tangent. I'm like you guys got to interject at some point because I'll probably talk for
Oh no, absolutely.
hours. Like this, I'm gonna be honest with you, this episode.
Easiest episode I've ever done.
Yeah, Jacob
I
just
think-
stands back. He's like,
I'll sit here and eat sweet tarts all the time. Let you go, dude.
but
I do think that with Serling, they probably, because of the nature of it, and because they wanted to go America, fuck yeah, and I kid about that, but they were probably a little bit less stringent because it was talking communist, or because they was talking Nazis.
yeah. I
Well, yeah, I
get
mean, it
it's-
was 1960.
1961.
Yeah.
Well, 61. World War II. The effects of World War II were still being felt.
Oh yeah.
And World War II was most people that were under the age of, that weren't children. Any adult that was alive at that point was alive during that war and felt it
yeah.
and knew something about it. So they were probably a little bit. It was almost like like on TV, at least back in the day, you couldn't have nudity, but they'd let you have those those History Channel shows that would like show people often like, I don't know, fucking
Oh, like National Geographic. or
yeah,
something.
Yeah.
butt ass naked people walking around. It's almost like that. I think they kind of probably viewed it as, this is something it should be seen.
It's educational.
Yeah, to a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably were like, don't go too far, Rod, but they let him show some. They probably considered this graphic,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
like some of the
I-
imagery. It's not graphic throughout, honestly, but there is some
No,
striking
no.
imagery in this episode,
Yeah.
especially while he's walking around the camp before all the weirdness happens.
Yeah, it's there's something that's really potent that happens at the end of this episode with the doctor and what Ross Sterling says. But
Mm-hmm.
did you guys know
Agree.
anything about this episode before you watched it? Like, did you know it was about Nazism and about old lieutenant or colonel or whatever he was going back to kind of in essence face the ghost of his past? Did you know anything about that at all?
I've seen this episode a couple of times. Like it was
Okay.
one that would occasionally show up on the marathons and such. So it definitely, and it sparked my interest because I have a not background with it, but I have family that was in Germany and lived through World War II. And when I went to see her, you kind of hear, you always being in the States, obviously you learn history from a certain perspective.
All Germans are Nazis.
Yeah, and
Back then.
absolutely, and being over there it was really interesting to hear her perspective because all those things, but to hear it like from someone that she lived through all that, and it was an interesting perspective. And so coming into this episode, it was interesting to watching Twilight Zone pre, like going to visit my cousin, and then post, like watching it this time. It was an interesting change in how I perceived things.
Yeah.
I don't remember the episode. I didn't remember watching it. So like I didn't know specifically what it was about. I knew it was gonna have something to do with the Nazis only because I know what the Death's Head thing was. I'd heard that.
Mhm.
Because I'm really big in World War II, but I'm versed in World War II, like history and stuff like that, especially growing up for a period of time in DC, going to the Holocaust Museum many
Oh
times.
yeah, the Holocaust Museum was. I remember
Mhm.
going there at 12, and holy shit!
You look over those little borders where they have the video playing.
God.
You have to be a certain height to see over them to see the graphic videos, and they
Yeah.
show everything in those videos. And it's not like it's not even that kind of like, oh yeah, like graphic. It's like real people being executed and just awful,
Yeah.
terrible things.
Yeah, there's a picture that recently got unearthed where it was kids and family members being walked along to the chambers. It was like, fuck, man.
Mhm.
I mean this episode isn't that graphic, but it does play into the
For
whole
the
idea
time,
of,
I think it was.
well, I mean,
probably,
yeah, for the time now, it's like all you do is go watch like Schindler's List or
Well, even some of the
what
stuff, like I said, like and we both picked up on it. I think it is the most striking visual in the whole thing. The people hanging,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's not because they're hanging, it's because of what it represents, the way
Yeah.
they're hanging.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like in a Western, you've got somebody with a bag over their head and they're like tied up behind it. No, this looks like a beaten like just it looks awful. And that visual right there was just like, wow. Even for nowadays, it's just a striking visual.
Absolutely.
Not striking like, oh, that's beautiful, but like it does make you it takes you back.
It hits
and
you where
yeah,
you live.
I'm really surprised that it was on TV in 1961. But I mean, if I saw that in a show today, I'd still be like, oh, I might not be surprised it's on TV because you can put almost
Yeah.
anything on TV nowadays,
Yeah.
but it would still be a striking visual. And a lot of it does have to do with, you know what it is. It's a concentration camp. You know why those people are hanging up. You know how they were treated.
Yeah.
So that
Well,
the history and knowing that adds to it.
Can you imagine like having this episode play and then Mr. Ed plays right after it?
Oh God.
You're like
And
And
crying
then
and all of a
very
sudden
the show.
special
Mr. Ed's-
Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, right.
Wilbur, why are there people hanging out back?
You know how sometimes at the end of the episodes, they'll have whatever's coming on next, like Ed Sullivan
Oh
or
God.
whatever it was. I
Yeah,
don't know.
Gunsmoke.
And they come on, yeah. Stay tuned for the next, and to have somebody from the show being like, "Stay tuned for the next episode of, I don't know, Bewitched or whatever." I think it would have been kind of funny had they had that at the end of this episode.
Yeah, like at the end of the episode when they're introducing the next episode, it's just Rod Stone smoking Oasis cigarettes. He's like, I don't know, whatever, just go on to the next. It's like, but
With
to
his
kind of
face.
get
It's
Right,
like crematory.
Oh shit. Here we go.
and we are officially going to hell.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Anyway, so to kind of get into this episode, we start at a hotel. We're introduced to a guy named Schmidt. He walks in, and the innkeeper, he wants a room. The innkeeper looks at him and gets really uncomfortable. This is the first point. I think I don't know. Is the innkeeper a Jewish woman, or is she German, or she just knows who this guy is? Because the guy Schmidt plays off like he's just a businessman, but he's coming back, as we learned, for
Well, we gotta
Anyways.
remember, I don't know if she's supposed to be Jewish or not. I think the show kind of pushes you in that direction, or the story that she probably is, or she was at least affected by this. While the Jews absolutely caught the rawest deal in that whole situation, I mean, that whole thing that was going on over there, everybody was affected by it.
Oh yeah.
There were
Yeah.
people that weren't Jewish that were still.
Well,
You know,
God,
it's
if
not
you
like
were,
the Nazis didn't just go after Jews. I mean, it was world war,
Yeah.
So everybody was affected by it. So that lady could have just been, maybe
Just
she
from the
wasn't
town?
Jewish, but maybe she was still one of the affected people. But I don't know. I think she's just, because she lives in this place, that this place is still standing, this concentration camp. So she's very well aware of the atrocities that went on there.
well, even just the
Right.
fact of even if she just was from the town, to recognize someone that is that sinister. And clearly he enjoyed what he did. I mean, you don't have to look far to see the fact
Oh,
that
you see a smile on his
he
face
relished.
a lot. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like he's got that swarmy, like.
Well, he was the guy
yeah.
in charge. So
Yeah,
they
no.
probably saw his face. He was the face of the place. So that makes sense why
Absolutely.
she recognized him. Probably.
One fun thing about that actress, she was married to Peter Lorre, who did a whole bunch of like
He-
horror stuff back in the 30s and
I was thinking
40s.
Hugh Laurie.
No, so
I
Peter
was like,
Lorre
damn,
was
he married young.
he was like he was in Arsenic and Old Lace, and he was in M, he was in or what was it, Mad Hands, was it called that? So a lot of like early like noir / horror from like the 40s, like 30s, 40s, and 50s. But he's kind of a short kind of Hungarian guy, had massive eyes and shit. So, but anyway.
Goddamn
Thought that was
Hungarians got some
interesting.
big fucking eyes, man.
Oh man, it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's insane.
Oh, I know.
You
I
always
know. I
kind of
remember.
talk like
Got them
this.
hungry eyes.
Do you guys remember?
Hungarian eyes.
Do you remember where Oscar Barecki came? Who was in? Do you remember him?
Yeah, that they said he was what was he in?
He was
one
in
of
the
the
Rip Van Winkle caper. He plays
Yeah,
the guy
yeah.
that running the.
Oh, the doctor,
Yeah. That's
the
why-
professor, the professor. That's what they call him.
Yep.
Right. The guy who set it all up. Right.
Yep, you are correct.
See the sets for this episode, which doubles for Doc Howe. Buck Houghton explains CBS had made a pilot for a Western. They had built a four-sided Frontier Fort. It was $150,000 to $200,000 set to pre-lot or pilot the Western. And it was standing on lot 3 at MGM. We just had to downgrade it. So there was actually a Western front before they used it in the Twilight Zone.
It was a fort at that point,
Yeah,
so
it's interesting.
very.
But yeah, I like how the woman he lies and said he was part of the Panzer Division, Eastern Europe and so or Eastern Front. I just like the realism and how she acts and everything. It's you can tell that there's a lot of history there. And I gotta ask you guys this question before we get into like the Schmidt going to the concentration camp. why the hell is he back here? Is he just back here because he wants to have a good old, lucky time in the concentration camp?
Yeah.
Like, why the hell did he come back?
He's
Well, you know how
sadistic.
that, and you know how they always say that that a thief will always return to the scene of the crime, or a
Mhm.
criminal will
Yeah.
always. I mean, you think
Wants to
about it
relive
like,
it.
oh, absolutely. It's like why do we torture ourselves going back to class reunions and shit? Because there's part of us that's masochistic, but in this case, yeah, he was definitely in it for the I don't know, the chuckles.
That was the highlight of his life.
Absolutely.
So he's going back to relive it, I guess.
He had the
Um,
fond memories.
But yeah, like I was writing that, she talks about a concentration camp. He likes a cigarette and smiles. There's just a lot. It's a lot of disturbing stuff before we even get to the concentration camp. And just this guy who we find out his name is Lutza, Captain Lutza. Like you guys said, he was the one in charge of this concentration camp. And I think the most interesting thing is that it was always talked about Nazis that fled. They always fled to South America, which it's interesting that that's where they fled to, because apparently it's a
And the
safe
moon.
haven. In the moon, yes, in the moon,
On the dark side of the moon.
right?
They made
Yeah,
a movie about
they're
it.
like riding dinosaurs and stuff like that. Is that the second movie?
That's inside the Earth.
Oh, that's right.
On the moon,
that's
they just fly in spaceships.
Okay. Yeah, I think they were also in South America making like clone Hitlers as well. From what I hear.
Well, that's where the entrance to the center of the Earth, where they're riding the dinosaurs, is in South America
Ah.
and the Arctic.
Oh,
There's two
so
ways in.
do they go to the center of Earth and it just shoots them out into the moon? Like it's like a teleportation device.
It's like a big hole. Yeah, there's a door. You go in there. They go down
It's like,
and-
And they
it's
also
like
have the-
Godzilla vs Kong.
You got dinosaurs, and Hitler rides a T-Rex.
Nice. They also have the Spear of Destiny, so they can they can, I don't know, make people.
There's a documentary about it called Iron Skies and Iron Skies
yeah.
too.
Um,
Oh, good
do
lord.
they,
drama.
is their favorite movie The Producers?
But Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Right. Or
Springtime
Kong vs Godzilla.
for Hitler.
Oh, and what's the guy? The iPhone guy.
Oh, Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs is down there too.
Oh, well, there you go.
Is
They've better things.
Yeah.
Oh, is
And-
there a giant
is Andy
arcade
Dick down there
machine?
too?
Who? There's a lot of shit down in the center of the Earth apparently.
Eh?
Oh yeah. Is it
According
made
to
of
this
cheese?
No,
Documentary.
that's outer space.
Ah, I got you.
But how can the Earth be? How can there
moon.
be down inside the Earth when the Earth is flat?
I don't know.
It's under the Earth.
Because anal.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
There you
there's
go.
always that.
That is
Yeah,
true.
right.
Down inside the anal. What was the question?
I don't know. Should have asked me like 10 minutes ago when I forgot we were
why
talking about.
why did he come back to Germany? Was the
Because he
So we
wanted
got
a hot
past
dog.
that.
because anal.
Yeah, everything is because
You want an
because
anal hot dog?
Oh God.
Yeah. In all seriousness, like, you guys said he came back from the to revisit his old stomping grounds where he literally stomped people to death. Yeah, concentration camps. They're exciting to talk about.
Oof.
So his taxi driver drives over to concentration camp. Doesn't specify, it's just a Dachau concentration camp. I guess that's just what they were called. He kind of looks. I can't remember what point. I'm trying to remember what point Rod Sterling comes into the mix to talk. But he goes there. I think this is the point where he sees the hanging men on the little pole. He's looking through the different buildings, stuff like that. I can't remember if this is where Rod Sterling talks, but it's quite a long set of words that I'm sure
Not as
Jacob
long
wants
as
to get
last
through. So
week though.
No, it's not.
pretty long though.
But
This
it
one's
is-
more
it's,
effective. So,
lengthy. It's girthy.
yeah.
Veiny. So let's take this thing and shove it in. Here we go. Mr. Schmidt recently arrived in a small Bavarian village, which lies 8 miles northwest of Munich. A picturesque, delightful little spot, one time known for its scenery, but more recently related to other events having to do with some of the less positive pursuits of man: human slaughter, torture, misery, and anguish. Mr. Schmidt, as we will soon perceive, has a vested interest in the ruins of a concentration camp. For once, some 17 years ago, his name was Gunther Lutz. He held the rank of captain in the SS. He was a black uniformed, strutting animal whose function in life was to give pain. And like his colleagues of the time, he shared the one affliction most common amongst that breed, known as Nazis. He walked the earth without a heart. And now former SS Captain Lutz will revisit his old haunts, satisfied that all that is awaiting him in the ruins of the hill is an element of nostalgia. What he does not know, of course, is that a place like Danzig can't exist only in Bavaria. By its very nature, it must be one of the populated areas of the Twilight Zone.
It's interesting that he throws in the Twilight. I'm actually surprised he put in the Twilight Zone at the end. I know it's the Twilight Zone, but it's I don't
he
know.
actually touches on that the closing narration.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like the fact that he put, by its very nature, it must be in one of the populated areas of the Twilight Zone.
I think that's because that's just how he ends all of them that way now.
Yeah,
With something,
maybe.
the Twilight Zone.
Right. I mean, if it was like last week's episode, that makes sense to have it in the Twilight Zone. But I guess because of the nature of like Dachau camps and ghosts of Jewish into dead ghost Jewish prisoners of camp and stuff like that. I don't know. It's very interesting, but I digress. So
Well, I think too, you have to remember that this is because it was so fresh still, you're talking 16 years later, you do kind of have to remove it from you remove it from real life and you kind of put it someplace where hopefully people learn and they don't do that shit again, kind of a deal.
Yeah.
To some
you would
extent.
think.
It helps if we
Right.
continue to teach it more thoroughly in schools, but don't
Yeah.
get me started on that. Of course, they touch on it, but the amount of time they spend on World War II in general and the Holocaust, they don't even talk about it. Why? This started way back, like when my oldest was in elementary school. She's 22 They're 22 now, so this would have been more than 10 years ago. They were saying things along the lines of the Holocaust was offensive. And they didn't want to offend people and things like that. I was like, it's no shit, it's offensive. It was
It's supposed to
fucking
be
genocide. They
offensive.
almost eradicated an entire race of people. You cannot stop talking about that. I mean, like me and Triv were talking about before the show. I'm not saying you got to harp on it and keep on people because like someone is not responsible for their ancestors' doings, but it's not something that big. You don't stop teaching.
Right.
Well, that's the thing that I that bugs me so much is, I don't know. This kind of leads into this episode, why this episode is actually quite important. I don't know what schooling is like for you guys up there in Alabama and Triv. I don't know what it's like for you guys up there in Iowa and stuff like that. But I've noticed schools down in Florida are doing exactly what Jacob says. They're cutting back on all the important stuff like this, but they're more worried about doing like those state tests where you do.
That's
like,
been the case for a long time,
FCAS.
though.
Yeah.
Well, that's my point is like when you watch it, this is the reason these episodes like speak to me so much is because this is the kind of stuff that like I wish I kind of learned more about in high school and stuff like that. Even 20 plus years ago, it's like what this episode does really well is it makes the episode small on the fact of one guy, the SS captain, probably 15 in prisoner or 15 Jewish POWs that were killed, and then we have the one guy who is played by Joseph Schilderkraut, who plays Alfred Becker, and it's able to get off to the point of what this whole situational problem was with the 1940s, World War II, and German Nazism and stuff like that. I think this episode is able to justify its 25 minutes by still being small, but also being very big, and it's what it's trying to say, and
Right.
that's why it was so impressive to me. Something I was not expecting. So I don't know.
I will say, like from the history perspective, like you do definitely learn more as you leave school and kind of do your thing. Like they touch on this one thing, and then you realize all of this other stuff that happened during that time, but. Yeah, to not have the base of that stuff, to not understand that, wow, 80 years ago, because and so much of it now is taken without context. Like, look at the way Nazi is thrown around. Look at the way Hitler's tossed around. Like any of those words,
they
communist,
don't even know.
no, exactly, communist, fascist, all of those things. They're tossed around at anything and everything, and it doesn't matter the age. It's said by teens, it's said by people in their 90s. But the fact that like all of those terms, they lost something along the way. And not
They
to say
became-
that not to say that you want it to be like Voldemort, where it's like, oh, the thing that shall not be named, but to talk about it and to understand that, you know, there are very things that are easy to miss, but then to not overstate the things that aren't in that realm. It's such a balance
Yeah.
of those things, you know?
I mean, it's over. It happened, has been dealt with. I don't think we should like harp on it in that way. Yes, some things are harped on nowadays, but it shouldn't be forgotten.
No,
It should
absolutely
still be
not.
taught in
Well-
detail. Now, I mean, but the thing is,
Yeah.
it needs to be taught. Like, I have a unique perspective on this. I have a kid in private school, and I have a kid in public school. I'm not even getting into why. There's reasons.
It's
Just know
just
that
this
I
way.
do.
Yeah, exactly.
I have one in private, one in public. I want the public school one in private, but whatever. We're not going there. The one in public is almost 15 years old. The one in private is 9 years old. She knows more what all of this than he does, like leaps and bounds. Because this subject actually came up, you know, that some of these terms were thrown out there at one point. Where like some statements were made and stuff like that. The 9-year-old, 8 at the time, maybe even 7. I don't know. 8. I think she was 8, and she was like, "That's not what that. Yeah, that's part of it, but that's not all that was." And had to school the person that is twice their age, because that public school is not. I mean, they touch on it literally over the course of like a day or two,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and give you a cliff notes. Some things, some wars, some historical events. Sure, I get it. It's a whole history in school. I mean, yeah, you're there for years, but I understand you got to give cliff notes on some stuff or just kind of touch on it. You want to know more? Go find out more yourself. This one, World War II and everything that went on there, I feel like they need to spend more time on it. It's called World fucking War II. That's a big deal.
Well, that's the thing
It was
about
a
this
Holocaust.
episode, right? That's the thing about this episode that is actually pretty potent is when Becker comes in the mix. First of all, Lutza kind of looks around, he smiles, he looks into different buildings and stuff like that.
God, the swarmy smile. I wanted to
Yeah.
bitch slap him for that. It just like it's so well done. It just
Right.
it infuriates you because there are people
Yeah,
that,
which is-
that look at
yeah.
that asshole and what he represents and go, oh yeah, this is what, you know, that whole how can, oh God.
Well,
I-
that's what I was gonna say.
and-
Like,
and- sorry.
go ahead.
Oh,
No,
I'm
go
just
ahead. Go
gonna
ahead.
just gonna say like, and that whole thing is, and I guess being I spent some time in Germany with the German cousins, and like to hear even from their side, like they were kind of conscripted, like her father was conscripted into war because that's what they did, but like she had this wall of photo albums and like whatever it was, 38 or 37, whenever things really got bad there, she had like a message in the back of the photo album of the year previous, because she had all of them listed by year, and it said something like, after this time there was no happiness until 1945-46. And the way that she discussed it, because their town was one of the worst bombs during the war, and she's like, I was a kid at the time, I didn't sign up for this, I didn't want any part of this, but I was dragged down by these fucking Nazis. And I keep that in mind because it is so sad. And
Well,
it just, oh God, that smile though, it just brought back all of that
Yeah.
rage.
well,
And the
that's
fact
the
that-
thing about.
Oh
Well,
God.
no, I was gonna say that's the thing about this episode, and the thing what Jacob was alluding to is given enough time, the 17 years this episode takes place after the World War II. People tend to, as we learned to like 9/11 and stuff like that, people tend to kind of move on,
Forget.
kind of forget.
Well, and you kind of like you have to keep living. I mean that.
Well,
you know,
that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like
You do
when
to a
see
degree,
right. No, I
Right.
understand.
but it needs to. You should always remember these type of things.
Oh, then that's not even a question. And I'm not downplaying it at all. I just, there is that balance of, you know,
no, I agree with
understanding
you.
what came with that time, but also like you can't, it's
You
like if
can't
you lose
live
someone.
with it every
No,
day.
exactly.
Because I'm
Yeah.
with you. Because there's things we have going on right now about it, and at some point, it's kind of like, all right, guys, we gotta not let it go, but we need to allow ourselves to move forward.
Yeah.
We do need to
Well-
allow ourselves to move forward from even this event we're talking about here, which is a big deal. But we don't need to forget. We need to still teach it so that it doesn't happen again.
Well, that's the thing. Like when you see what Luta says to Becker as this episode moves along, it's almost like he thinks that people are going to forget, and the whole point is he's trying to make it where it wasn't as bad as it truly was. And when Becker comes into the mix, it's like that, Luca just doesn't want to accept the fact that he is the cause of or part of the problem. And like I said, he expected everything to move on, everything expected to be fine.
I think he said
he was
something
just
along the
going
lines
to be
of, "I figured everybody would have been over it by now."
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't think people were going to hold a guy's few little mistakes against him.
Yeah.
Little mistakes.
Well, it goes
Yeah,
to
he
show
forgot to
how
pay his
little
parking ticket.
it goes to show how
Yeah.
little they thought of like
Well,
whether
they
they're
didn't.
Jewish or Romanian or or gay or gypsy or whatever. All of them, they looked at them and said, "Well, you guys don't, you're not
They're
perfect
subhuman.
Aryan race. Fuck you.
I mean,
Go
in
die."
their minds, they called them subhuman. They did not
Right.
think that they were on the same level.
Right.
They weren't worthy of life. So killing them was like stepping on a cockroach, literally in their
Right.
minds. That's what they
Yeah.
were. And some of them were indoctrinated to feel that. I mean, to think that.
Oh, no,
And that
absolutely.
does not okay their actions, but they were
There is
riled up to think.
there's logical like, and that's the thing with that balance, and it's something that comes up later on in this episode, but it is a point at which they were like, "Oh, we followed orders, we did this, we did that," and there is that balance of, okay, if you were indoctrinated that much, like they were talking about like Hitler Youth and the fact that like these little kids were basically like, "Oh yeah, Germany forever, woohoo," all that stuff. And yeah, it's an easy thing to
Well,
see. Like how many people fall into that shit anyway?
well, that's the thing. Like when you watch this episode play out right before Becker comes in, you're seeing this guy Lutza walking around, and you see like images pop up where he's in his uniform. He's talking to the prisoners and stuff like that. And there's one point where a prisoner has eaten for 5 days, wants water. He's making fun of him because he wants water. Kind of like what's his face, that little kid from Oliver, whatever. And like the smile and smirk on his face, it shows you that this guy just doesn't understand what he truly did, or he understands, but he thinks he did it for the right reasons or whatever he thinks. And it's just like until Becker comes into the mix, it's pretty crazy what he's remembering and just how
It's
fucked
like
up it is.
it's like a dude going back for a reunion and like reliving fond memories.
Yeah, he knows.
I remember killing this guy. Oh, that was a great day.
Yeah.
I had pudding and then I went out back and shot a guy in the head.
I signed off on a few million people being killed.
No biggie.
They weren't people. A few million subhumans being killed.
Yeah. A few million
Yeah.
Jews.
Yeah, because we need to rid the world of them. It's so fucking weird and crazy.
Just real quick, and this is random, please forgive me, but you look back through history, and it's like the Jews get the short end of the stick like all the time. I feel bad for them.
Well,
I mean, to be fair, they run Hollywood now, so they got
God,
something.
I just fucking assholes.
Anyways, but no,
Not the
what
Jews,
Dave
but
Chappelle
just
say?
generally.
Hollywood.
There's a lot of them. I ain't saying anything.
Yeah. But I mean, the act break comes when we first are introduced to Becker, for the most part. Like, what do you guys like? How did that affect you guys? Like the first act with all the stuff you're seeing.
I was
how's
angry.
the setup? That's good.
I'm always angry though. I'm like the Hulk.
All you have is corn, so I get it.
Yeah.
But then you should be able to make whiskey out of that. So what's wrong with you?
And gas.
Yeah, gas. Well, mostly whiskey.
It's not very good whiskey.
I was definitely taken back by some of the visuals, especially like we've harped on the hanging people thing. I knew by the time before our apparition showed up, I knew that this was going to be an episode where this guy's going to get his comeuppance, and it's probably going to be some spirits or something along those lines. I didn't know how, but I knew something like this was going to happen just because that was a creepy ass place, which I think that would be a creepy place either way.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah, I'm sure Auschwitz is like the creepiest place to go to.
Well, and you think you take like the Holocaust Museum times about 1,000, and I think that's any of those concentration camps.
I mean, I knew it was going to be something like that, so I wasn't like super surprised when we go on and find out what happens. I mean, like I said, I had no idea exactly how it was going to go down, but I was like, yeah, this guy's going to come back, and especially how he's walking around reminiscing about stuff. I was like, you're going to get yours.
Yeah,
I think the episode did a good job of setting up a character that you fucking hate.
Yeah.
Sure, the history that we all pretty much know, at least to a degree, does add to that. I think they knew that, and that helped with having the short runtime. They didn't have to do much. I mean, really, you just show an actual Nazi. Don't have to do much to dislike them.
No.
But it did go the extra mile to show that he relished and performed mass genocide. So yeah, not liking our main character very much at that point by the act break.
All right,
Well,
so
I-
this version or the guy that he played in Rip Van Winkle, or Caper?
Well, I mean, he did like drive off a cliff, didn't he? Or he drove the vehicle off the cliff or something.
That was somebody else.
No, the other guy.
but
Oh,
yeah.
here's my feeling: the fact that in the first 9 minutes of this episode we got so much and how tight and well written and well paced this episode is, it's pretty impressive. Because I looked down at the counter for the for the act break. It's only 9 minutes, so we got all that fucking context in 9 minutes of this episode, and we still have 18 or was it 10 12 minutes before the end of the episode. It's a pretty tightly packed, tightly wound, very pretty
very-
impressive what they're
Does a very good, thorough job of setting up things.
Very.
yeah, especially for what they need to do. Well, especially for what Rod certainly needs to do.
You're
And
ready to
with the
come back
crew.
from that commercial break and see this motherfucker get his.
Exactly.
Right.
I
And
had my
that's
popcorn and my drink and
he's like, you're like, please, sir, may I have some more? But no, when we come back to this episode, I have to say this is when it truly started hitting me. I mean, it already hit me with like the whole hanging stuff and like that. But Becker in the wind that sound like moanings and groanings, and the idea like that Becker's like, oh, it's been good to see you, sir, and like the idea that Becker's not really, it's not really, he's dead, but it's not like
I wanted to touch on that. I'm
Yeah,
glad
yeah.
you said that. I forgot.
the 17
Dude
years.
shows up, and okay, we know where it goes, but he remembers him, and they're talking and all this, and he's like, "Oh, are you the caretaker? Do you really think that he got free and he kept on the same fucking clothes for 17 years to be the caretaker of this place? I mean, that part I was kind of like, he's a
he's a recreation guy.
ghost, obviously.
Right.
Who's
Well,
gonna? Even if he, I think that he would do anything in his anything he could to shed everything about that place from himself.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's the idea. I think the ghost more
Mm-hmm.
represents the idea of the fact that Becker thinks that this guy has moved on. His mind is so focused on the reality of like, oh, I did this, and this, and
That it wasn't a big deal.
know,
Yeah.
to him, it's just like, oh, you're here. The fact that Becker is the same age as when he was, as we eventually find out what happens to him. It's just, I think it's the whole idea of like the logic and reasoning of a human being that does something so atrocious or whatever.
The fact that he thinks that the guy would just be like, "Oh, hey, yeah."
Yeah.
I mean, it was rough times, but
Well, and don't you think too that mentally, like, we always try to cover those things, and not to say like he was obviously very proud of the work that he did at Dachau, but do you think it was maybe one of those things where he's like trying to fill in the blanks of, well, this guy can't be dead, he has to actually like be here. What's the most logical? Oh, he probably is a caretaker or something.
Yeah,
in a
like
prison
that.
uniform.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the whole idea of like, oh no, you love me, you worship me. Of course, you're gonna come back and be the caretaker. You're
I
gonna come
didn't do
back and,
anything to you besides torture you,
murder
and
you, and
starve you,
try
and
to
kill
murder
you.
and
Yeah.
I mean, there's some striking stuff in here with like I said, the noises, the wind. He's like, what is that? Why does that wind sound so weird and creepy? It's like, is that the wind? And Becker's like, sure, it's the wind. It's not the millions of people that you guys killed. It's the wind making groaning noises. It's the nothing. It just, until we get to the trial, it's just the nature of what Becker is saying and how Lutza is trying to justify it. Like, the uniform is part of his flesh. The tattoo on Becker's arm is a skull and crossbones, is a reminder. The noise, like I said, sounds like moaning. The wind, 10 million human. I mean, it's like he says, 10 million human beings, adults, children, infants. They burned them in furnaces, dug graves. Basically, until the trial happens, that they're like, you're going to be tried, convicted, and sentences like that. It's a lot of like bringing to light Lutza's like horrifying crimes and stuff like that. And it does it pretty effectively. And like how slowly kind of builds up to that trial.
I mean, yeah, it kind of covers all that stuff. And I don't know if he was just that like out of it. Like, oh, I'm in this place. Oh, I'm seeing this guy that I knew during my time, managing this camp. Oh, how is he still here? Oh, he's doing this, he's doing that. Like, he's just bitter over all these things. I didn't do anything wrong. I doing my job, and I'm really good at it. And yeah, I killed a lot of
Yeah.
people, but they're not really people. Like, the delusions.
Illusion of grandeur.
Yeah, I'm not sure from that perspective. I'm not sure how you can say, how he was like seeing this guy, and whether it was in his head or, the spirit of the place or whatever, and not realize, shit, I am going to die, or I'm going to, have my comeuppance for all the shit that I've done. I don't know. I don't know.
Mhm.
That's
That
one of
and
those things.
he's so oblivious to this person that was one of his prisoners. He knows that, at least, even if he doesn't think what he did was wrong, he knows the world as a whole. I mean, over 17 years, he's found out the world as a whole disagrees with you, buddy. So much so to where you had to go into hiding to South America. So he knows that he was, in the world view, wrong, and definitely in this prisoner's view, wrong. And he sees the guy and he's just like, oh, whatever. So he has the forethought. He knows that he has to hide himself by going into hiding in South America, but not to this guy.
Right.
I just feel like he would have been like, no, I'm not him. I'm somebody else. I just look, my name is John Smith, but he's just like real open, like, yeah, I did it. And I mean, from the get go. And he's like, oh,
Did
hey,
it,
I
and
remember
do
I
it
tortured you.
again.
Yeah. That seemed
Yeah,
a bit
it's-
odd to me. That whole interaction there seemed a bit odd. Now, I mean, maybe it is happening in his head. It's almost like a lucid dream or whatever, and that's why it comes across that way. I don't know.
Well, I
That did-
mean, even Becker like brings up like the idea of like, why'd you even come back? Why'd you not stay in South America? You were fine. You were gonna live a happy life, in the whatever in South America. And I like how he comes back and hoping the passage of time would change the little mistakes that he made, and it would be quote unquote fine in the long run. And as we learn, it is not fine. People, millions of
heals
people,
all wounds.
almost,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and I just kind of got thinking, and it's probably an obvious thing, but it kind of relates to the end, like Rod Serling's end
Yeah.
bit. But
That's why. That's why I said what I said.
yeah, but I think that, like, they talk about how Dachau and ones like that continue to stand as reminders of things. So people like him, even if it stands in our heads as much as it stands, as a monument to the crap that went down, even when people come back, they're not going to be able to escape what they did.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Agreed.
Exactly.
Sorry, that was kind of rambly, but
We're gonna talk about that. Don't
Um,
worry.
but this basically all leads to the trial. Becker is trying to escape. Of course, the gate closes on itself, locks itself. No 2-foot pole from Howling Man or anything closing that shit. It's this is where it gets super serial. Basically he's basically being put on trial in the simple fact of like they're finally like pushing the shit into his mind about what he did, and they're like unlocking the key to the journey of imagination or whatever it is. That's actually pretty good now that I think about it. You open the door to the journey or whatever. You open the door with this key. Isn't that the opening narration to the Twilight Zone?
you open this door with a key of imagination.
Thank you. So they're opening the key
Door.
into the horrific imagination of.
I mean, you
Lutza.
could go the Willy Wonka route. Come and
There's
see
no earthly way
We'll
of
be
knowing
in a world of pure imagination.
which direction we are going.
That's what I was
Is
about to
it
say.
raining? Is it snowing? There's no earthly way of knowing. Anyways, but this is where I think the most Twilight Zone portion of this episode happens, where Becker tries to escape. He's thrown into Compound 6, which is where a lot of people are, basically where a lot of shit happened. We see the ghost of his, basically the ghost. This could be like a Christmas Carol thing where the ghost of his past or whatever come back to haunt him, and he basically is found guilty as he was. He breaks a window. He cries out through that window, And it's interesting where when they basically sentence him to basically go insane, they basically travel from like one torture chamber to the death gas rooms and stuff like that to the experimental rooms and stuff. And he feels every
skipped a
bullet.
part.
What's that?
He actually like during the trial passed out or something. It kind of just was too much for him, and he comes to and he's like, "Oh, it was a dream." He's like, "No, it wasn't a dream." The
Oh yeah, yeah.
Becker was like, "It wasn't a dream. That actually happened.
He tries
Your
to. He
verdict's been
tries
passed
to.
down," and then it goes into all the. So here's your sentence.
Yeah. And he did, I think he tries to like strangle him or something like that. Does that happen at some
Yes.
He
point?
tries to strangle him, and it's actually kind of a cool jump cut to him, like his hands going around the hanging pole.
Right. Now I have to ask you guys, like the bringing in all these people, the Jewish prisoners and stuff like that. Like how effective did that seem to you guys? Like the stuff when he gets like he's made to feel like what it was like for them to experiment on the population and the torture room and the bullets and the different like kind of torture stuff that they did to the prisoners. But like the prisoners themselves just all kind of staring at Lusa. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
I mean, given the time, I think they would have. I think you could have done it without the people staring. Like you could have just done voices, or you could. I think you could have stuck with just Becker and being like, "There are thousands of people here staring at you right now," and gotten it across. But as we've seen multiple times, like I'm sure studio execs were like, "Oh, we need some visual representation of the masses so people understand what's going on." So it's probably a case of they needed like those staring, the staring, sightless eyes just, boring through him to get the point across.
I thought with the whole thing about like him like living through all their like the being shot and tortured and all that stuff, that was a really good idea. I think that's cool, and I'd like to see that. I didn't think the episode necessarily did the best job of executing that. I mean, it showed him like writhing
Really?
in pain and all that, and
Uh-huh.
and all that, and that yes, that. But it was kind of like, and yeah, we got some sounds, and some of it was fine. But I don't know. I guess I was wanting something a little bit more. I wanted to see him get his even more. I don't know. Just I don't hate what they did. It's like I almost wanted to see what he was feeling, like maybe in his head. And he did a few
See,
moves and stuff. And it is 1961. I have to take that into account.
Yeah.
They're not going to show this guy getting blown away. They're not going to show him being beaten and stuff like that. But I wish there was just something else, like maybe it was just like the in his head version where he was seeing this, he was feeling, he was going through all these people's pain that he inflicted. And I think that would have really run home the whole what happens to him ultimately in the end, what the
Yeah.
condition he ends up in. It would have ran that home for me a little bit more. When it was happening, I was kind of like, wait, what? At first, I was like, okay, he's going through. I didn't realize that's what was happening at first.
Well, I think if this had been a season 4 episode, which it could clearly have been, actually been pretty good. I think it would have done what you said, where you would actually the stuff that he is like he's like throwing on the screen would have actually gone more in depth to it. There would have been a lot more like a visceral feel to it. You would have seen the different things, like not to like a violent extent, but you would have seen a little bit more. Yeah,
like if it was made nowadays, it'd be torture porn, and that is what I want and I don't want. I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to see this asswipe get his a bit more, and I wanted it to be a little bit more defined and clear that this is what was happening to him. But on the flip side of that, you could go too far. You could show too much to where now it's losing its meaning and it's just torture porn.
Yeah.
Even, torture porn for 61. And I didn't want it to be torture porn. I didn't want to see that. I just wanted this human being. I wanted to see more than just him writhing on the ground going, ah. I wanted to see something that he was feeling or seeing or something like that. Right. Something that just ran it home more that what was happening to him. Because like I said, for a minute there, I was kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on? Because it happens fast. And he's running around all over the place. And he's like, and it's like, this happened and that happened. I'm like, okay, the stuff is happening to him, I guess, in his head. And I didn't want to think, I didn't want to be put in a position to where I was thinking that. I wanted to just know it.
Do you think so there's an episode of Twilight Zone that starred George Takei, and basically an American soldier essentially changes place with the Japanese soldier, and I think it takes place during World War II, where he kind of lives through what they were living through at that point. If
Mhm.
do you think that if he showed up and like you see him in the concentration camp,
Yeah,
get
almost
ups,
like a Quantum Leap kind of situation where
yeah,
we see him,
Yeah,
but
I
it's somebody else or something like that, and you
the
wouldn't even
problem
have to
is
show much. You just kind of understand. I don't know. I don't, and I'm not gonna lie, especially for 1961. I'm not gonna sit here just on the off the cuff and tell you exactly what I think it should have been. I'm just saying
yeah.
I got a feeling. I'm like, I wish it was. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate that aspect. I really like the idea. I just wish it had given me something a little bit more.
I think there's a fine line, unfortunately, in the 1960s. You have to walk where you can go a little too uncomfortable, a little too hard when it comes to these, because you're dealing with
For
like the
sure.
murder of like 9 to 10 million people, and this I think this is a digestible way to get at the things you need to say, because for instance, it says in the Wikipedia page, Becker Ghost informs him, this is not hatred. This is retribution. This is not revenge. This is
I like
justice. But
that.
this is only the
yeah, that
beginning.
was
Yeah,
excellent.
your final judgment will come from God. I think what they're doing is they don't want people to be so off put, because it's still, as I hate to say it, it's still entertainment. It's still
Right, it
a
is.
Well, yeah,
it's still a way to tell a story. And today, for the most part, as you see from like Schindler's List, you can go pretty hard when it comes to these stories because there's a justification for it. But 1960, you start showing this guy on I don't know, in a doctor's office in the concentration camp being like cut open and stuff like that, just because they like to do experiments on him, for whatever reason. I think that's the problem. I get what you're
But
saying.
I
I just
think
think
there's
the
well,
a
that's
problem is,
that.
there's a line in between there too. But I will say too, with all of that stuff, like you could show them lined up by the front gate, and then maybe you hear the noise and it goes to, you see the rope being put around his neck. The one thing with the way that it happens, and I'm on the fence about it, because I do think like the actor did as good of a job as he probably could have done to
Sure.
understand what was going on, but it almost does become a bit comical's not the right word, but it does become like overacting, like
Yeah.
melodramatic. It becomes melodramatic
And
for
you are,
those.
and that I think that is because there was a moment, like I said, when I shouldn't have been, but I was thinking, wait, what exactly is happening? I mean, okay, off the cuff, 1961 sensibilities. They could have, and Triv said something. I think it was you, Triv, that said, "Oh, you could. What if you like showed him as one of the Jews? More or less, like just go through like a montage real quick and just have some really creative camera trickery where, like, you show him walking in a line into a gas chamber and he's like no or something like that, and he goes in there, the door shuts, and then
yeah,
like
like the Twilight Zone
maybe
movie a little bit.
do a smash cut to like him, like she said, putting the noose around his head, and they pull the thing and he drops down, and do a cut to him falling down in front of the fence, and then you see somebody pull the gun and go "Da-da-da-da-da," and he goes and he falls down, and then he's in another bad situation like that. They just had like this montage where he like falls through all these terrible things, and then after that show him on the ground slowly falling into insanity, like because we would have had that visual. It wouldn't have been a grotesque visual, but it would have been something we were like, okay, I see what he's going through, and
Yeah.
now I don't need to see more. I've seen enough. Now I understand what he's going through right now while he's writhing in pain on the ground, is all these different situations and more. So
That's
it's more impactful to me now because I got a snapshot of it. I didn't have to see anything grotesque or gratuitous,
yeah.
but I understand much better visually, because it's a visual medium, of what's happening.
And
Well, that's
honestly,
what I was
since
gonna
it showed, oh, sorry.
Well, no, I was gonna say what you're going off of, that unfortunate Twilight Zone movie episode, the Vic Morrow episode, the one where he's a racist. It does that exact same thing you're talking about, where it starts out one thing,
Yeah, he's on
and
the
then he's
train.
shot into another. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you're
I mean,
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's
Yeah.
he goes to Nazi occupied whatever, and then all of a sudden he's like in Vietnam, and he's seen all the things like that cause him to be a racist in a lot of things. But what I was going to say is, in the Wikipedia page, they use a thing called tactile illusion, and it's an illusion that affects the sense of touch. Some tactile illusions require active touch. It's like visual and auditory, so it's basically what what is happening is like they're causing him to feel the effects of everything. The problem that lies with what you're saying, like that what you mean is 1960s filming, the way they do things, it comes off a little. It's like the last episode with It's a Good Life, where the way Bill Mummy does his like thing. There's a weird weird off kilting nature of like how they film it and how weird it is. Like today, you could make it more realistic, but back then it feels very strange and of its time.
It's a different
Just how it
time.
presents
They
yeah.
made things differently. They
Yeah.
acted differently. A lot of these actors, we talked about this before. Many of these actors, because film and TV was still especially TV was relatively new. So a lot of these people were stage actors by trade. Originally, they started out on a stage, like really, like not just like nowadays. Somebody's like, "Oh, I was a stage actor for like a year, and now I'm an actor." No, they were stage actors for a living, and so when you're on the stage, you have to be bigger, you have to be more expressive and just more dramatic, because you're on a stage, and you have to project to everybody back there, and that's why a lot of those older films. It wasn't until like the 70s, really, for like consistently, we started getting some more realistic depictions of people, the way people acted back then in movies and TV. That it was larger, it was bigger.
Yeah, and a lot of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s actors and stuff like that, they were all stage actors before they got to screen. Now it's like,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, you grew up as but what were you going to say, Triv, before I cut you off?
Then I cut you off.
I'm trying to think. I think it was just the fact that like I was mostly agreeing with you, Jacob, just as far as like I think there would be ways to show it, like, and I don't think you'd want to take it to like an all, like, how with the Trouble with Templeton, they had kind of the all black background and they kind of jumped between those different scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was room for that, just because we saw, I don't know, like you're seeing him, what's going on. Okay, this is you in front of this gate being, shot down. This is you, being experimented on and tortured. This is the thing. Seeing like, I think having, even if it's just some kind of a thing where it's like you see him go through these things, you see what's in his head, you feel like it's more him getting his comeuppance as compared to freaking out. But again, I do understand, like you said, it's a case of what is available to them, what kind of time they had to set up the shoot. Mm-hmm. all of that stuff plays in, and we always talk about idealized situations, like, oh well, if we had been there, we would have done this or that. So I do think it was
have limited resources.
For as strong as this episode is, I do feel like that is sort of a missed opportunity, but it's relative because budget and timing and everything else. That's not to take away from it.
The funny thing is, like, I actually think it's like perfectly done, but
no, and that's
awesome.
Time
I disagree with you guys.
no, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
no, I know.
It's just a matter of like, I know when I watched it, like, it did feel like that it did feel high or melodramatic to me, but that is my perspectives on this, and you're looking at it from that time, and it hit you where you live because of the message. Like, however it was, however it was delivered, it was straight to your heart.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it all hit. I think we all got. I don't see how anybody could watch something concerning this subject and not feel something. I mean, I was sitting here saying I was bawling my eyes out. No, but this is just. I don't know how anybody. Like I said, just that. I don't know how anybody could watch something concerning this subject and not feel something.
Well, that's that leads into the conclusion of this, where he's basically gone insane. Like, I love the part where the cab driver's like, I literally just brought him here 2 hours ago. How the fuck is he insane?
Yeah.
How did he lose his mind? And I love everything about it, because the doctor, he kind of preaches, he kind of focused on the same thing as well. But then he has that great line at the very end before Rod Sterling's thing comes into the mix, where he's like, why did they leave this doc up? Like, why would they do this? And I'll let you do the Rod Sterling thing in a second, but it's a perfect encapsulation. I cannot say that word. Encapsulation. Yeah, about
it encapsulates.
Yeah, you guys gonna mess it up too. You get my stupidity when it comes to that word.
You're not.
But
No.
you know what I mean. You know what I mean. It purposely encapsulates the idea of like where people's logic and reasoning goes at the very end. Like as time moves on, it's like this doctor's like, why the fuck is this thing still here? It's a remembrance of a reminder of like the horrors of what these people did, and it is paid off very well in the closing narration. But what do you guys think about that as well?
It's very strong, and it kind of, because I'm sure that there were a lot of people of that time, and I mean, even look at now how much stuff we deal with, like, oh well, why don't they take down this, why don't they take down that? The reason that it stayed up, the best way to learn from history is so people can go and say, okay, this was a person that existed, or this is a thing that happened. It existed. There was physical evidence of it being there. It's not just a thing where it existed. Grandpa talked about it, but we're not sure how truthful it was. I mean, you still go there today and see all of this shit. Like, you can touch it. It's tactile. It's right there in front of you.
I would usually
Remember.
wait, but Jacob, go ahead and say what you were saying. I want you to do the closing narration because it perfectly encapsulates.
Oh yeah, I want to do the closing narration, but to respond to Triv, it's
Yeah.
is so as to not forget. It's it's just that. It's just to not fucking forget. I mean, people are like, oh, just tear these things down. Why do we keep them up? Why do we? You can't change your history. You can't change what happened. Shit happened. Bad shit happened in everybody's history, but you don't just say, oh, the bad thing happened, so I'm going to just do away with it and forget about it, because it's going to happen again if you do that.
Right. It's not that it glorifies, and that's the thing. It doesn't.
It's not a monument to the Nazis. It's a monument to the people who died there.
Right. It doesn't glorify that past. And I mean, obviously, with anything like that, there are going to be people that are going to go there like this asshole and be like, oh yeah, this was great. I'm going to take my summer vacations here or something like that.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a whole lot more people that go there and say, this is life changing. This is terrible that people live this way. And
there was
this thing happened to them.
There was, when I was visiting my cousin, we saw this art museum, and it was actually in a place that Nazis like lived and resided while they were doing bad shit. But there was an art exhibit, and it was all of these stamps. Like, they were massive. They were probably like 2 foot by 2 foot, like massive stamps. And each one had a concentration camp on it. And the artist took these giant stamps to the different concentration camps and set them up different places. And the overall theme of the exhibit was, these places are stamped on our past, and we can't forget it. And it was such a strong exhibit. It was really pretty cool.
There is the perfect encapsulation of
you
how
just like that word now.
Yeah, actually, apparently I do. Yeah, no, the perfect example of how people forget is there was a picture that was, I don't know if this picture was an old picture or was a recent picture. I may have sent it to you guys, or you may have seen it. There is a picture of, it's one of the Dachau camps, or it may have been Auschwitz, and there's this woman sitting on the railroad tracks doing a sexy pose, and her boyfriend's taking a picture. You saw that? And the only thing I could think of is what we're talking about now, how people don't want to forget. They want to do it as a, whatever they want to do it as, and they don't understand the power that these places represent. And it's the same thing the doctor brings up. It's like people just want to not have to worry or think about this kind of stuff anymore. And you have to, as Jacob has alluded to, you have to remember. And that's when it's what Ron Sterling says in his closing narration. So it's pretty crazy. That picture is disturbing in so many ways, but it's kind of important.
Fuck her sideways.
The note of, like, burning these things down, tearing them down. I mean, there was talk at one point of closing the Holocaust Museum.
Really?
So stupid.
Yeah, it was some time back about it, being too much or not letting. There are parts of it that you have to be a certain age to get to or see things and all that. But
top floor, I think you had to be, because I remember, because I was just old enough to hit that top floor.
Yeah. Now, I mean, quite honestly, on a side note of that place, the stuff that the barriers, no, that stuff's bad. The most affecting stuff there is the real things, like the big pile of shoes.
Oh yeah,
and stuff like that. But
how
they brought over parts of, like, the barracks or where they were living and or preparing to die. And the gas chamber you walk in, that's an actual gas chamber that people died in, that they or imported over here, things like that. But all that aside,
The shoe pit, though, that
there
was
was talk of, I think it wasn't talk of it. It was talk of it that it was going to, because like funding was low on it or something like that. You know, it has to be maintained. And there was talk of, should we just let this go? And I was like, Jesus, no. No, every school in the country should take a field trip there. Just like every school in the country should watch Schindler's List and Requiem for a Dream. But okay, let's get into this closing narration.
And Bloodhook.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. Just because.
And Showgirls. And Silo.
No, they really should.
Silo.
Watch Requiem for a Dream as a kid. You'll never do drugs.
Yeah,
Okay.
that segment with Jared Leto. It's crazy.
Prior to the closing narration, I do want to say, as you mentioned, and you said it already, but I'm going to say it right before saying this. The doctor asks, Jetsu, why does it still stand? Why do we keep it standing? And then Rod pulls up and he says, there's an answer to the doctor's question. All the Detchus must remain standing. The Detchus, the Belsons, the Butchwalds, and the Ashwitz. All of them. They must remain standing because they are a monument to a moment in time when some men decided to turn the earth into a graveyard. Into it, they shoveled all of their reason, their logic, their knowledge, but worst of all, their conscience. And the moment we forget this, the moment we cease to be haunted by its remembrance, then we become the grave diggers, something to dwell on and remember, not only in the Twilight Zone, but wherever men walk God's earth. I really like this closing narration.
It's amazing.
We're going to talk about, I had my issues with the, part, not issue, not like a bad thing. We already talked about it, like of how the end played out, but I really, really liked the message of how he got that in there. Cause I was wondering if that was going to get in there about the guy saying, why not burn this shit down? And then, and I think I get that, because if you lived through it, you probably are just like, good God, just get rid of this. Go make it go away. But I think Rod Serling had the forethought to say, because he went through it. He was in the war. He fought in the Pacific Theater, I think, but still, he was in the war. And he's probably like, no, we can't. Because while we look at it and it sickens us, we need it to sicken our children, our grandchildren, great-grandchildren. We need everyone to remember this, so don't tear them down. Because like he said, it's a monument to all that. And as soon as you tear those things down, as soon as you forget that stuff, it's exactly what we've been saying this whole time. You are going to become the gravedigger, and you're going to, we're just going to do it again in some other way, somehow. Yeah. Now, I like how in the end, regardless of what your religious beliefs or not are, I like how it's not just, he didn't say something to dwell on and remember in the Twilight Zone. He says not only in the Twilight Zone, but here on Earth, or he says God's Earth, but here on Earth, in the real world, not just Twilight Zone. This fucking happened. Think about that.
You actually Ross only got a Purple Heart, actually.
Wow.
He got a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart. He fought in the Philippines, I think, in Japan.
Yeah, right. He was in the Pacific Theater, at least for the most part.
Oh, he wanted to fight Hitler. He was disappointed he couldn't fight Hitler. That's interesting. There's actually a picture of him.
I think everybody wanted to fight Hitler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody.
I mean, Captain America wanted to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
Right. It's like everybody wanted to fight Charlie, that type of thing.
Another story for another day.
Right. This episode is brilliant. It's one of the most eye-opening, and I'm glad I didn't drink during this episode, so it's very sobering. It's an episode that hit me, no joke. We were joking like in the cackles and stuff like that. It's an episode that, like Schindler's List, I was thinking after it, I sat there and go, I just sometimes I wonder if, like, we just don't get brilliant TV like we do, like this show did. And this makes it one of the greatest TV shows of all time for a reason. And like I said, I don't have any problems with this episode. I know you guys have problems with like that segment, but I don't hate you guys for that. I'm just saying, like,
oh well, thank you. We appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But no, I think this is just an episode that has a lot of very very heavy things to say, and I think it does it perfectly in 24 minutes. And I think everybody's perfect. It's kind of sad to see it so far down in the Pace magazine.
Well, but you have to remember too, like they're not, and from a general perspective, if it was just you watching this episode and not doing the critical side of things,
Yeah.
like everyone is gonna have, I mean, because ultimately that Pace magazine
Well, yeah, but
lineup, but what I'm saying
well,
is,
no. What I was gonna say is everybody's view is different. That's why the rankings list is kind of a joke in a lot of respects. But it's
oh
just
yeah,
like, for instance, like the episode right below this episode is Walter Jameson.
oh God, no,
Yeah, so
no,
yeah, but like I said, it's all subjective. So
100%. And I was just
Yeah.
going to say that the Pace magazine thing, and if I remember correctly, I think it was just down to one or two people. It's not like you had a whole group. And I mean, the
Yeah.
way that we're looking at this from a critical eye, I mean, any of these lists, if we were to just go through and do our own lists from a non-critical perspective, it's going to be different. Even if it was just us sitting here watching it and going, oh yeah, let's make that number 7 or number 3 or number 82 or whatever,
Well,
yeah, wow,
I
wow,
Wow.
I
wow.
Hmm.
Wow.
This is when it gets spicy.
Ooh.
I like the message of this episode.
Hmm.
I think the biggest message is, like we've talked about, I don't think the message is that Nazis are bad, because I think we all knew that. I like it. Well, let me start here. I like how it set up its characters. I thought it did a really good job of setting up a shitty ass person for you to hate him. It did a really good job of putting this person in a situation you wanted them to get theirs, and you knew they were, and he got his. I had issues with how he got his, or how it was depicted that he got his. I wanted it to be a little bit more. We all know that. But the ending was the most powerful part to me, where they really rammed home the whole thing of, no, these monuments need to stand. I thought that was the most important thing. Never forget. That's the big message of this episode. Do not forget. Sure, we've got the whole thing about the bad man gets his. Great. But don't forget. Don't forget that this shit happened. And I think that's a fantastic message. I like the episode. I really like the episode. I think it was a great episode. But I like the message more than the execution. Not once again, not saying it's a bad message or bad episode, but I think that the actual message, I think the message was executed in the very end great, based on that one last line and his closing narration and little things throughout. But I honestly liked the message overall better than the execution as a whole. Not that I hated the execution, but I felt like the whole story of this bad man getting his wasn't even sure. That was great. That was almost like the chocolatey center to the whole thing. It wasn't really what mattered. Like well, I guess no, it would be the candy on the outside of the chocolatey center. The chocolatey center was, don't forget these things, that they happened and they were important to remember. Yeah, it was great. I'm happy that he got his, and I was happy to see that, but I didn't really need that for that message to be rammed home. Because if you take that aspect out of the story of the bad man getting his, that message could still be rammed home. I'm not saying it, I mean,
No.
obviously, with this one.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I just like, what would you do then? Like it would say you have the ability to go back and reposition things or do what you need to do to fix what you don't like. What would you?
Quite honestly, if they fix that thing there at the end, that whole thing, it didn't break it. I was still cool with it, but it did knock it down a notch or two for me. That execution in the end, it just got a little, I don't want to say sloppy, because I never felt like it was that, but it lost a little something there. And if they had just run with that and rammed it home a little bit better, I think that for me is where it kind of not broke, but lost a little bit of its potency. And then it picks back up for that, the final lines and what happened to the guy and the implications of the whole thing and how it went down, and whether it was or wasn't in his head doesn't really matter. But this person's been driven insane by these past transgressions. I don't know, man.
Let me ask you this: if they had taken out all that stuff that you were talking about, if they were like did the trial and then they do like the the shame, whatever, like they conflicts into him, and they just like show him insane like on the ground. My point is, like they're like closing in on him, and then all of a sudden it shoots to the end with the doctor and stuff like that. Do you think that would have worked better, or do you need something there? That's the thing.
Without, and I say take all that out, and it's my point is, you obviously could not take out that part of the story and have an episode.
Right.
I felt like he used this more digestible as to the term I used, and you used it earlier. That story is very digestible for people, especially 1961. Nazi gets his. I don't feel like that part of the story was integral to the message of don't forget that these atrocities happened and they're very important, or they're going to happen again. And they didn't just happen in the fucking Twilight Zone. They happened right where you're sitting, or in the earth you inhabit, the realm you inhabit. I feel like he used this story right here to get to that. He could have had any story that's still centered around this situation right here, and it could have been this one. I mean, I'm not. This is a perfectly good. So it's a very good story. I really enjoyed it. I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, we're gonna put." Like, I think you said Pace had it at 50 or 40.
40.
Yeah, I don't
Out of
think
120.
Yeah, that's. I think it's much better than that. I think it's well acted. Sure, it gets a little not hokey, but like Triv was saying, a little overacted there. Melodramatic in some spots closer to the end, but that is kind of the time as well. But I don't know, man. It's like I sound like I'm downing the episode.
No, you're not.
Really not.
The reason I ask you that is because the thing of that comes into, especially having written like not scripts that have ever been produced, is like, how do you, let's say there's something you're not liking. Let's say you're watching a movie and there's something that you feel like isn't working properly. I mean, it could be any movie, and then you get into the breakdown of like, what would you do to fix the problem, and it becomes like the idea of like,
well, there's, I think
what
I
is
know
the
what
most
you're saying.
important thing to you? Yeah. It's one of those things where I could like something, you could like something, and we could be completely different on the, but we understand where each other's coming from. It's just, it's one of those things. I was curious, like, what would you do? I don't give it, like, if you didn't like that part, that's
no, and I got an answer for you. I don't. That's the thing. I don't think there was anything wrong, barring that with that particular story. I just don't feel like that story of Badman getting his was the message. I don't think that. And what, like I said earlier, I don't have a problem with that. I think that was good. That was great. But that's not what made this episode great for me. Yes, I did like seeing Batman get his, especially when it's based on, at least to a degree, historical fact. I mean, I don't know if this character was an actual person, but you know what I mean? The Nazis were real. This all happened and stuff like that. So, a Nazi getting his, that was great to see. But I'm just saying, I didn't mind them using that as a conduit to get to the point, the message of the episode. Because the message of the episode to me was bad, don't forget shit. Don't tear it down, keep it up, because bad shit happened. We need to, remember our history, move forward, but remember it, or it's going to happen again. Now, on that, as I say that, it pops into my head. I could be missing the whole fucking point. And the message could be that you can never outrun your demons. You perform
unless you're Forrest Gump, you can outrun
terrible
anything.
You perform terrible deeds like this, no matter how much you try and justify them and say, oh, it wasn't me, me, I didn't do it, I was doing what I was told. They're always going to catch up to you. And maybe that's what happened to him. Maybe he went there. Maybe all this did happen in his head, and he went there and he just went fucking crazy by going back there, and it all came flooding back to him. He was expecting to go and relive the good old days and have great memories of murdering the shit out of people, but all of it came crushing down on him. And that little bit of humanity that was still left in him was crushed upon, was destroyed right there. And it just drove him fucking crazy. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the point was, maybe it was 2 points. Maybe the point was, hey, don't forget shit, like I said. And the other point was, you cannot outrun evil. You can't outrun your demons. I don't know. If that was, hey, I think they rammed that shit home.
Wouldn't you say, though, that this is like any movie? There's obviously Serling isn't alive for us to ask him what his intent was with this, but couldn't you say that it's like anything, like the way that you look at it and the way that Nick looks at it are two sides of the same coin, or two different sides of the same coin? So you're seeing this as the whole, right? Well, no, absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, those variations, as long as you didn't pull away the whole thing of, well, as long as I don't, talk to anybody in striped pajamas, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
Well, it's also funny. I wonder if that piece, that moment was Rod Sterling's compromise with the studio heads and
I
executives.
wouldn't
Like
be surprised.
he's like, I want to do this. You're like, oh, fuck no. Do you realize what audience we're dealing with? We are in the 1960s, not 2013. You can have him like where they're on the ground and stuff like that, but there's no way we're going to show you putting whatever he wanted in there. I mean, he's
I
like,
guess
I'll sell the tea. I'll give you the coffee. Just give me this. And you're like, no.
ultimately what I was saying a while ago was I don't think anything was wrong with it.
Yeah.
I just think that I don't think then I went on a tirade and said, hey, this could be the message. So that might be, but barring that, what I took as the message of this episode, I felt as if it didn't necessarily need that whole story. Now, I mean, you obviously got to have 24 minutes to fill. You got to have a story to get us there to that message. He can't just come on opening narration and then be like, all right, closing narration. There's an answer. So you got to have something. But that's what I mean by the execution. I feel like when I say execution, I mean the execution of the episode as a whole would have been that story of this bad man getting his. I didn't think it was bad. I just think as compared to the actual message itself, the message that I took from it, I thought was very powerful, very thought-provoking, and very important. I didn't feel as if the execution of the episode, the story that we got there to get there was as enthralling. I thought it was interesting. Right. I love seeing the bad guy get his, especially when it's based on real life shit bags like that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I thought this message was much more powerful than that for me. Yeah. But I don't think either the message or this episode were bad in any shape, form, fashion. I think they're both really good. I mean, I aired my grievances with, and I say grievances, it sounds
like you hate the episode. He's like, I hate this fucking episode. Yay, Nazis. Jacob, what are you doing?
See, I was afraid to say Nazis that one. The reason was clearly.
You say it one time and all of a sudden you're not. No, I'm just kidding.
I just imagine, oh yeah, this episode was lacking this, that, and the other thing. So where do you want to rank it? Number 7.
I would have preferred my only real grievance with the whole thing, all that aside, I would have preferred them do something just a little bit different, like we talked about ad nauseum, about with that showing him getting his. I would have liked to have seen that just somehow done differently. But beyond that,
no, I get it.
We're splitting what do they call it? Splitting hairs here.
Splitting hairs.
It was a good,
but not
really
splitting
good
rabbits because that'd be weird.
Splitting a frog's hair 3 ways. Somebody told me that.
We're splitting three-headed gopher into 3 pieces.
Absolutely.
That'd be creepy.
But that's my extremely long-winded, scatterbrained thoughts on this great episode.
Right. Triv, did you have anything you wanted? I know we've been talking, me and Jacob, but do you have anything else you wanted to add to it?
Don't vote for Nazis.
I would say so.
No, I mean, I think I already said my piece, basically. I think that it covered it. There were things that could have been done better, but given the time, you also have to keep in mind that A, budget, B, audience where they thought, well, these guys are a bunch of friggin' idiots. We need to make this as clear as day, nose on your face, hey, this guy is a fucking Nazi and he's gonna get his fucking comeuppance because he's gonna flail around like a damn fish, but
because
we're
America,
gonna get this point.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, where the bastards at? We need the bastards.
Exactly.
We need Brad Pitt.
But no, it's definitely the opening and closing narrations are by and large the best part of this. And Becker's just like, he had a couple of lines, and you guys mentioned the this isn't revenge, this is justice. There was another one that was you weren't a soldier, you were a sadist. And there's so many those lines that just hit
he also mentions like the whole your
uniform,
your wardrobe was your flesh, and this is your bones,
right?
This tattoos of skull and bones, and
also he said he made those comments about how, hey guys, it wasn't a big deal. It was a while back. Don't bring up old shit. I mean,
right.
That was very telling of his character as well.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Like just the script, and we've talked about this. It's a solid episode, but the script is just it has those moments that just they gut punch you, and then they let up, and then they gut punch you again, and
The real thing we had to talk about is what fucking Western costs $200,000. Like I feel like
1961.
yeah, 90s. Like I don't even think the Twilight Zone ever reached that amount of money for
Well,
an
you're
episode.
talking about like creating sets, like a gigantic
$200,000 in 1961 is like 10 to 15 million dollars now. I guess it's a
No,
lot of money.
it's
If they-
1.6 million.
Built that
One
set,
point-
they
yeah.
probably planned on using it for multiple things, and maybe it would
That's
have
true.
been multiple episodes. So that would have been $250,000 spread out over however many episodes they had on,
Yeah, that's
Rawhide
true.
or
And that
whatever.
was interior and exterior
Right.
level stuff too. Plus it's probably the planning of it, like all the pre-production stuff, all of the construction based stuff, actors, whole 9 yards, and then they
But you said
probably
it
did a
wasn't shot,
pilot.
right? It was
Oh,
a
is it?
planned
Did it
one
not
that
shot?
didn't happen, right? Is that what you said? Or did I just
okay.
make that up?
What's that?
The
what was that?
Western that was made for, that the set was originally made for, was it? You said it was not.
I think it was Bill. I don't know if they ever went this like series or whatever.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? It was the 60s, so who
Yeah,
knows what.
they were
So
crazy.
they probably
back then.
budgeted for however many episodes and said, "Oh, it's only this much an episode if you spread it out," and
Yeah.
didn't get made.
But
Plus
Maybe
sponsorships.
it did. No.
yeah,
Like Oasis cigarettes.
Oasis cigarettes and
right.
Ovaltine.
The
The
smoothest taste.
softest taste.
Don't think of Christmas story. The real lesson of the story is
I have one more thing, and this is really random, but I just thought of
God.
it.
Your O-face?
I is it bad? I was sitting there watching this thing, and I thought, Becker is kind of like like Lutz's Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life. Only
yeah,
Yeah.
except he
kinda
wants
not
you
a
to
wonderful
die.
life.
He ain't saving you in this time. Yeah.
No.
No, actually Becker, the guy who plays Becker, is actually in episode 31 of the season of A Twilight Zone. I can't remember which episode it is, but he also won an Oscar too. But if there's one lesson we could take away from this episode, it is The Ghost of Mrs. Chicken was a great film. So
What?
just no, there's a random movie. I just want to pull a random movie, The Ghost of Mr. Chicken, the Don Knotts film. Anyways,
You're
Weird guy, Ace.
yeah, I know. I just watched Ace Ventura today, actually.
Yay.
Yeah, laces out.
Finkel, Einhorn, Finkel.
That Dan Marino should get gonorrhea and burn in hell. I have exorcised the demons. This house is
Excuse me. I asked you a question.
Asshole. All right. With
Who?
it, Zahar.
Sir.
not passed out.
Love it.
Do not collect $200. Anyway,
Onwards and
Where were we?
upwards.
nice palate cleanser.
Yes. Right. But yeah, so I think we that's episode 9 of season 3 of the Twilight Zone. Death has revisited. So
Fight.
Twilight- No,
Fight.
Twilight- the Twilight Zone ranking list, the greatest list that Rob Sterling never got to read because he would agree that is the greatest list. Triv, where do we put this at?
Number 3.
Say it. Thank you. I agree.
I'm interested.
Let's start there.
I know Nick, you had sent over.
I wasn't actually going to
DMs and
put it.
texts
I
and-
would put it at number 1, but I know it's not going to hit number 1 because I know how strongly you guys feel about the Eyeball Holder and the Invaders. But number 3 is where I want to start.
Well, no, that's what I was actually going to ask. Is now that we've talked about it, because me and Triv were talking about it before you got on, because we knew that you were saying at least in messages that you want to go number 1.
I just want one episode where we fight about the list, where we get in the shouting matches. But then I
was
realized that's not
Curious
fun.
if that's where you still wanted it to go after we talked.
I mean, I do want to wake up my neighbors below me, but I don't think that would go well with the police coming over. So
Probably not.
yeah, probably not. Maybe one day
Especially
if I have
without
a
a
house,
roof.
we can yell at each other for some reason. For
I
whatever reason,
yell at everybody regardless.
So we're starting at number 3.
which is above the shelter. It's a tall order, I know. I'm gonna
Mhm.
try. I'm gonna.
He will go, or he will find his way. He will go the distance.
So, anyways, number 3 is where I'm starting. Where are we going from there?
I defer to Triv to see where she goes next.
I think this is top 10. I don't know that this is number 3. And
Well, I talked to Dan. He likes this better than Obsolete Man. So
Dan's not here.
that's right. Dan's not here right now. He's a fucking Brit. We don't.
He told me
talk
to
about
say it. I said I would. And I told him to go. I
it.
told him to go back to Britain, and he said, "I'm already in Britain."
That
I
is
said, "Well, come
true.
to America, then go back to Britain." We'll talk. No,
Honestly,
yeah,
so-
but he's
so-
yeah, that's what he was saying. So
No, I agree. Honestly, I would put this between Walking Distance and A Stop at Willoughby would be where I would start.
I would put this above the monsters that do on Maple Street.
You wanted above? Holy shit!
I'm not joking. On a
Holy
critical
shit.
and personal level, this is one of the best episodes I've ever seen. But I
No,
think this is
I
very.
could see it. I wouldn't put
I
it
think-
above The Shelter just because I think The Shelter is. It's one I would. I
It's
love
solid
this
as hell,
episode.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Except
shelter
for,
is
except for that, whatever the door that they had.
yeah, but
That ain't very solid.
okay, we gotta take some concessions in the '60s, but
Well,
That
no.
was a
Are you
solidly made
noticing?
episode.
You noticing a pattern in the Invaders and the Shelter, Obsolete Man? There's some weird things being going on with like how things are built,
mhm.
True.
like doors and creatures.
Well, I, in all honesty, would put it. I put it at number 5.
above
I feel
Obsolete
like
Man.
this episode constructually suffers. Not suffers. It's similar to Obsolete Man in that it's a fantastic episode. There's that one thing at the end. Doesn't ruin it, but it does stand out. The trash ass edit for that explosion in
A
in,
trash ass edit. Wow, that
trash
must be
ass
that's trash
trash
edit.
ass trash edit
Uh,
for that explosion.
I mean, do you
Um,
think the ending from Maple Street is stronger than Revisited? 'Cause
No.
they're both like they're
I
both
think
almost
that this
perfect
one-
episodes, but
I think it's stronger than this one. No, I think the overall episode of Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is constructed more evenly. Once
Right.
again, if you would just want to go on pure message of the episode, I mean, we're probably going to have to take Eye of Beholder down. You know, I mean, because if we go through this list is going to get very different if we go on pure message. But when I look at it, I say, okay, the message definitely a part of it. Absolutely is. But I got to take into consideration the rest of the episode, how it was constructed, how I like the whole thing, the complete viewing experience, and just complete viewing experience, the execution, the message, all of it. For me, number 5. I think Monsters, especially a first time watching Monsters, was kind of like, holy shit, it's aliens. You know, that was a big wow ending. Just like, I mean, Invaders had a similar thing where it was like that too. Obsolete Man, I thought was just strikingly shot, and it was a very interesting. It gave you a lot to think about and chew on. But I would put this, for me, I'd put it right above Obsolete Man.
I never thought people would like put Monsters Do on Maple Street above something. Usually it's below it.
That's what she said.
I mean, I think you'd be happy. That was like your big.
I
favorite for a
know
long time.
that's what shocks me so much. Like when I'm putting it above Monsters Do on Maple Street, you know, there's I've
Doing number
lost my
one.
sanity.
See now, given the two, like I don't think I like Monsters as much as like I really like the
Well,
episode,
Trev, you're wrong.
but I don't think that I think that I like this one more than Monsters. Like there's that obviously top 10 is our, head bitch in charge episodes.
Mhm.
But
Head
like
bitches.
like
Like it.
for like
HBIC.
honestly, I like Obsolete Man better than Monsters, but that's a different story for another day. I would actually put this at 4, but I think 4 or 5 would, either one of those is good by me.
I'm fine with 4 if it goes above Monsters. I'm not like fuck no, this not happening.
Well,
But if you want to put it above The Shelter, I do have issues there.
No, that's fair.
So if you want to fight, we can fight about that.
damn it, damn it.
But-
No,
I
I'm
am
fine with
agree-
it. Whatever.
I am agreeant. I can't put it above Shelter. Like The Shelter to me is just
It's a very
And
well
this-
crafted episode. I
yeah,
mean,
not
I'm
unlike
gonna-
that door.
and it does have
I-
its message as well,
Yeah.
for damn sure. But I mean, and
Exactly.
granted, this one's probably a bit more. I'm not even gonna say relevant because it had a pretty relevant damn message too. This one is powerful, especially given it's the background that it's delving into. But I mean, that episode just as a whole, from beginning to end, was just constructed. It's ironclad, man.
Yeah.
It is really just like the other 3 in the top 3. Those are all.
Yeah.
You're gonna find a hard time finding anything wrong with the construction of any of those episodes. In the
With
top
exception
Right.
of the
Top 10,
door
but
in The
especially for-
Shelter.
You know,
Well,
I have
that's
this.
more of a
I kid,
prop. I
I
mean,
kid.
they.
I kid. But I do
I
think
have
the thing that separates The Shelter and this one is
Yeah.
that The Shelter is very much, and regarded obviously as a nation or a world, you can relate to it, but it is such a personal thing. You
Mhm.
know, like your family's safety. Like, how can you make that decision? Like, and if you're ever faced with that, how do you make the decision to save your family over, your family, your
Sure.
your neighbors, all that stuff? This one is very much more of a moment in time for the world. Because even if you had, even if you were a country was neutral, or you believed in the cause or whatever else, the Nazis are something that you don't forget. If you're been born in the past, 80 years, you're gonna know Nazis in some way, shape, or form, even if you don't know a lot about it.
Right. I have this is going off subject, off topic, not really
Oh,
off
here
topic.
we
It's still
go.
on the same topic. No. Okay. So
What he said.
when I started this podcast, I asked Triv to come on and eventually Jacob. The funny thing about this list is I thought it was going to be Eye of the Beholder, Monster Do on Maple Street, Time Enough at Last. Eventually, I found out the Invaders. What I didn't realize, what it was is starting to become obvious, is the episodes that are truly the special ones are the ones we don't actually see coming.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
The Shelter, the Walking Distance, Purple Testament, Shadow Play. This one is it's the episodes that are like lower on our list. Like I said, like Time Enough at Last and whatever else, Elegy, stuff like that. Those are the episodes I thought were going to rank higher, but it's starting to show that I think we have a more interesting look at the Twilight Zone than a lot of people do. Because if you look at, not to discredit Pace Magazine, I'm just saying like we look at Pace Magazine, or you look at
Fuck you, Pace Magazine.
yeah, no, but you look at like Rolling Stone or whatever list, it's really interesting. Like they're all like they have those episodes, Nick of Time, all that stuff in the top 10. Here, our top 10 so far is Eye of the Beholder, The Invaders, The Shelter, Monster Do on Maple Street, Obsolete Man, Walking Distance, Willoughby, Purple Testament, Shadow Play, and Willow Room, Marshall Please Stand Up. 3 or 4 of those might be in the top 10 of everybody else's. Everything else is like the Purple Testament wouldn't be in the top 10 for a lot of people. The Shelter wouldn't be. I don't know. I find that interesting. That's just where I never expected that when we first
absolutely.
started.
But I think too, like you look at a lot of the big
Surprised
lists.
that's in top 10.
Yeah, you look at a lot of the big lists though, and I do think it comes down to one person or 2 people or 5 people or whatever are assigned like as a job, and the job part of it plays in, which obviously it's even if they love it, you are tasked with sitting down and watching every single Twilight Zone episodes back to back. You have 3 weeks to do it, and you have to rank them, accordingly. That doesn't give you, like, the 3 of us are kind of fans, that there's not even a question of that. Those guys, you might have one guy that decided to come up with the idea. The rest are, they might like it, but it's not that thing. You bring all that together, and it's like, it becomes, we have weeks where, it's like, okay, 1 per week or 2 per week or whatever. Those guys, it's like they have to do it in a limited time. You are, it's like you have to live up to the expectation of, well, these are the episodes that are known to be big. If we place them anywhere but the top 20 or whatever, people are going to get all over us. We have that freedom we can freeball it and pick the episodes that really, and plus the critical back and forth. And, as much as we joke, I tricked Nick into putting, I can't think, for God's sake, Perchance to Dream, higher than, most people would, because I'm a fucking asshole. So,
See, I told you, Jacob, she admitted to it. She finally admitted to it.
I never did.
She tricked me into Perchance to Dream.
Fish.
It's China syndrome. It's a syndrome. China syndrome.
Would you shut up?
She got me in the syndrome. Perchance syndrome.
Oh yeah.
You son of a bitch.
Yes, you're a son of a bitch.
Yeah, but no.
I will take your mother out for dinner, to a nice steak dinner, and never call her.
I will take
McDonald's.
I will take your imaginary friend to a roller coaster with a cat, and eventually let him jump out a window.
Well, screw you. I don't have an imaginary friend.
We don't know. We don't know what you do over there.
That is true. Harvey.
It's Iowa.
I do have the guy that lives behind the rose. He too dwelleth behind the rose.
He who lives behind the rose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it Mordred?
I can't talk about him honestly, because he might kill me.
On in the new one, it's Groot. So.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Is he a thing of Precious's? He loves his Precious. Is there a mountain behind you?
No.
Is there an eye?
In the new Children of the Corn, he loves to suck.
He really likes the cobs.
There you go.
You know what he likes to do?
He loves
here in Iowa, we enjoy cornhole.
I'm sure you like the cornhole.
Cornholio.
Yeah.
They can
Anyway,
hold that corn.
so where are we
All
at on these?
right. Jacob wants it below monsters. You want it above monsters. Oh God. I
Jacob
don't
wants to blow monsters. Oh, what? Okay.
Ooh, with that sexy monsters.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you saw them. They're
I
kind
mean,
of alien monsters.
they have things on top of their head, you know.
They're not the Mr. Dingle the strong level monsters, but
They don't have cock rings.
no, unfortunately.
Definitely be there. Huh.
So
So
I'm
what
cool with- like I
fancies
said,
what
I'm
fancies
cool
your
with-
cockles?
Above or below.
that's what she
Monsters.
said.
Top or bottom.
God damn it.
She's gone from suck to blow.
Graham, I can't make this decision because we're going from like one of my favorite episodes to one of my favorite episodes. To actually
Well,
one
then
no, it's literally like we're
Car's a
either
little slow
going
on that one.
we're either going above one of my favorite episodes or above the other from my favorite episode.
Well, then it shouldn't matter because you like them both.
It does matter. Like I don't
You
know.
went
I
either
don't
way.
know. I don't know the answer to this question. You guys make the decision. I can't make this decision because
It goes below the
like,
shelter.
Yeah.
I'm taking the executive decision making and it's going underneath the shelter.
Are you allowing this, Jacob?
By underneath, I mean number 4. Just as
Jacob
clarification.
allowed it, so where's the gavel?
All right.
All right, so we'll do it. As Triv has put her foot down, she has stepped on the corn. I'm sorry, Jacob. When I invited you on, I didn't know Triv was this disturbed. I thought
Yes,
she
you
just
did.
liked she likes apparently she likes cat ladies. I don't know what's going on
What?
here.
What the? Okay.
I knew it.
All right.
Fuck you
I've
both.
done reviews with her before.
You haven't judged, you haven't heard, you haven't treasoned. I don't know.
You've been found guilty.
Yeah, whatever that Knight's Tale. Anyways, okay, let's get out of here. So yes, new number 4 will be Death's Head Revisited. Like I said, I never knew these episodes would get there, but where was it? Number 1 is still Eye of the Beholder. Number 74 is The Trouble in Templeton. The next episode is, of course, The Midnight Sun, which has what I think when you watch this episode, you'll feel like you did with Third from the Sun. In respects, not the same ending, but the same feel to the ending type of thing. This episode is season 10 or episode 10, directed by Anton Leader, written by Rod Sterling, stars Lewis Nettleton, Betty Garb, Tom Reese, and William King. So we'll look forward to that. Yeah, Death's Head Revisited.
That's
Quality
said,
episode.
revisited.
Yes, sounds like a band
was.
name, metal band.
Anthrax
Anyways,
did use audio from the opening narration in one of their songs.
nice,
Apparently, I saw
Oh,
that
that's
in the
cool.
trivia.
nice.
Mm.
Okay, so we're gonna head out. Triv, you have content. I'm still waiting for the land to be excavated for your theater so I can build my
Fat
pleasure emporium.
chance. Fat chance.
But where's your content at right now?
My content is in my new theater. I just gotta finish the content to get it out of the theater and get it into your faces. So yeah, stick around because hopefully this next week I'll actually have something to show you. But no, you can find me here on YouTube at Trivial Theater. You can also find me on IG and Twitter at Trivial Theater.
Excellent. Jacob, as of this video posting, you have completed your retrospective, right? Where's that at?
Yeah. Actually, as of we're recording this, the last episode comes out tomorrow. If when we're done recording, I finish it.
Yay!
I'm putting the last finishing touches on it, kind of 11th, what do they call it? 12th hour? 11th hour?
Oh,
I don't know.
11th
11th
hour.
hour.
You're in the
Yeah.
11th
11th hour.
hour.
So yeah, that should definitely by the time this airs, it would have been up. And not only that, the 5th episode will be up, but also a single episode a single video that has all of them compiled together, which is actually the way I initially put it all. I built it as one big episode and then hacked it up and added some little things to make them individual episodes. So yeah, 2 new videos. Check them out.
Excellent.
Even if you
Yes.
don't like video games and Dreamcast, interesting little story about the old company going out.
Yes.
I'm not a
I'm not going out,
gamer
changing.
by any stretch, and I love his videos. They're very good.
The one that's
Yeah.
coming out, just came out the other day. If you're watching this on when it premieres, is the longest one yet. It's like 20 20 something minutes long. The
Is it-
whole video,
that's
the whole
girthy as
story
hell.
is like 40 something minutes long.
Nice.
Well, yeah, definitely check that out. It's really good stuff. I've watched all the episodes so far.
Thank you.
So yeah. But as for me, I have content. I post these videos on my channel. I do movie reviews when I can. Things are changing, so I will be able to do more reviews. Hopefully, I am doing at some point. I'm doing guest spots retrospective for the Indiana Jones series leading up to Dial of Destiny. I'm going to do a Jurassic Park, whatever. All that stuff's coming down the line, so look forward to that. But I have some reviews as usual. Rate, subscribe. Audio Boom, Anchor, SoundCloud, I don't know, whatever Triv said about sisters and mothers and fathers and sons.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You can listen to that audio feed too. I don't know, Triv. We're gonna have to have a talk. Jacob, it might be just you and me from now on.
Okay.
We'll see. No,
You
I'm
gotta
kidding.
do what you gotta
I
do.
think I heard you
man.
say you're reviewing Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it's gonna be 30 years. It's gonna be 30 years old in
Okay.
June
I was like, is there
12th.
a new
So.
Jurassic Park out? And I just was totally unaware of it.
Yeah, Jurassic World blow my brains out. So
Please
no. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, so look forward to that stuff. So but without further ado, for myself, Jacob, and Triv, we'll see you guys next time in the Twilight Zone. Peace out, motherfuckers.
Bye.
Adios. It's like your mother or your sister. Which do you want on top?
What?
Wait.
Get the fuck out of here.
Oh my god.
No
I'm
way.
sorry. I'm sorry.
one.
I just
Bam.
I felt sick for a second. Oh, shit.
Oh my god.
My cat is now staring at me weird.
Good.